lost my way, stumble around all day. I try to stand up straight, but...
Hi, and welcome to Talking with Giants. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. I like to start all these shows the exact same way with my pre-event prayer, so here goes. Lord, allow the words that we share here today to positively impact 100% of the lives in this audience in one way, shape, or form. Only you know who you sent here to hear this message. Allow us to do the best we can to deliver that message. Be a vehicle and of service to you. See, that's all we can ever control is a high intention and a low attachment. A high intention of imparting something great to each and every one of you here today, and a low attachment as to what that is. Whatever nugget is yours is yours. Now, it's going to be a great show. I got a great friend on here. Amber Rodgers teaches sales and entrepreneurship. She's the CEO and founder of D.I.V.A.S, Divorcing Independent Very Able Survivors, an education support organization. She has built several successful businesses, including a top producer for RE/MAX for 8 years. As a speaker-author, she's been featured on Fox, CBS, NBC, USA Today, About.com, BizLink, Digital Journal, and many more. And actually, Amber right now is filming her new pilot and new preview to her new show. Shh, secret, don't tell anybody. Amber, welcome to Talking with Giants.
Hi, Scott. Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, we met again a number of years ago in the D.I.V.A.S days, and although I'm happily married, I've been through the other side of that and wanted to do anything that I could do to be of assistance to you. Where did D.I.V.A.S come from?
Well, you know, I love the fact that you start the show with prayer, because when I went through my divorce, it was so hard. People really don't understand that not only does it impact your family directly, but it impacts those people around you. Your church family is often affected, and you just really feel lost. So many people were coming and reaching out to me and asking me what they should do, so I actually prayed about it. And I just heard, you know, you're going to go through the worst of the worst, but when you get better, you're going to be better than ever. You're going to be a diva again. And I flew out of bed that night, and I just wrote down diva, and I wrote divorcing independent, very able, and I thought, what do we do with this? And to me, it was about helping people survive.
Yeah, I know back in those days, we were talking about putting some trainings together and trying to re-equip those coming out of a divorce so that they could be more active in the workforce or do a variety of different things.
Right, and that's what we do to this day. And, you know, I feel so blessed that we talk a lot about legacy and stuff like that, that this does create a legacy, and it really does change the course of people's lives, because we equip them with vetted professionals, whether it's a real estate agent or an attorney or whoever they need at that point. We meet them where they're at, and we help them get basically the support and the resources that they need to get to the other side.
Well, it's interesting because I think Peggy and I, in our marriage, Peggy was a business owner prior to our marriage. She and her family owned Country Burger, the best darn burgers in town, and then sold that franchise. But you know, she was accustomed to doing the accounting, keeping the books, doing the different things. So in our marriage, that wasn't an issue. But in many times, husband and wife don't share those traits. Maybe the wife gets pigeonholed into, quote unquote, to being a wife and not having those skills. So D.I.V.A.S does a great job of really helping them kind of get back on track with those trusted resources.
Well, right. And typically when in a partnership or a marriage, somebody does take on the role, a primary role for finances, or a primary role of taking care of the kids or taking care of the home. And those roles are divided. So when we lose that other half, sometimes it feels like we lose our bearing.
Yeah, well, that's true too. There's plenty of things. I know that there are things that Peg takes care of that all of a sudden she'll say, and I'm like, who do I even talk to about that? So right. it actually happens either way. That's
it
cool.
does.
So where have you gone from there? Now you founded D.I.V.A.S and you're working on, you've done so many different things. Where do we go from here?
Well, you know, I think that the biggest blessing is that I've been able to touch people that I don't even know. And when you mentioned filming about the show, we did this 3 years ago. We started it, and sometimes we want things to happen and they don't happen right at that time. When the timing is right, it does happen. But when we were filming, I had a girl that I had never met walk up to me and she said, I just want to thank you so much. She said, you saved my mom's life. And again, I'd never met her. I've never met her mom. Now I've met her. But she went on to tell me that her mom came onto her website and was going through a divorce and was contemplating suicide. So I think what people need to understand is that divorce is not the end. But we are dealing with number one reason for adult suicide. And so this woman graciously thanked me. And, you know, to know that you're impacting people that you haven't even personally met is such a blessing.
Well, it's one of the things that while you were traveling here to the studio and I got here a little earlier, I did a Facebook post. Unfortunately, just came from a funeral of a friend. But one of the things that the pastor said was, Ronnie wanted to let everybody know that he wanted to see him again. He knew where he was going
Right.
to be. You needed to get yourself right.
Exactly. Well, and they say that the three hardest things that people deal with in life are death, divorce, and moving. So a lot of times my demographic is dealing with both a divorce and they're moving. So this is very stressful on them. And really, when your marriage ends, it often does feel like a death.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a friend going through something right now, and I don't know if there's a right side, but he's kind of in the right, and unfortunately, the group of friends all think he's in the wrong. And it's, how do you even suggest somebody handle
Well,
something
you know,
like
what
that?
I always tell people is you can't focus on what the other person did wrong. You have to focus on what you can do better. And I don't believe in taking sides. I really think that relationship issues should stay within that relationship. And I think one of the biggest problems is going out to your circle of friends or your family and discussing those issues. I really think you need to keep those within the relationship if you're trying to heal it.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. Now, I caught something, I don't know that our audience necessarily caught it, but you said here you're now in the filming of the pilot and the previews of the new show. You started this 3 years ago.
Yes.
And you said things don't always necessarily work on our timing.
They do not work on our timing. I've certainly learned that about life, you know, and unfortunately or fortunately, we have to learn for the right timing. And, you know, think life is not perfect. It's not a straight line to success. The road to success isn't perfect. Relationships aren't perfect. And there really isn't that Cinderella story out there. We have to work with what we've got, and we have to have faith that things are going to end up the way that they are designed for them to end up in our life.
Well, last week, my guest was Charles Horton, who you
Yes.
introduced me to.
I
Thank
love
you so
Charles.
much. Charles is great. And at the end, he asked me, he said, what's your greatest takeaway from his book, Ignite the Secret? And I said, it would have to be the Chinese bamboo tree.
I love that.
You know,
it was one of my favorites from the book as well.
planting the seed, and the seed and nurturing it and then germinating 5 years
Right.
before it ever breaks ground. But once it breaks ground, it can grow 90 feet in 5 weeks. And I kind of feel a little bit like that's what Talking with Giants is.
I feel like that's what D.I.V.A.S is, really. And, you know, it's fun. We talk a lot about relationships, and I believe your relationships are your most valuable assets. You mentioned Charles Horton, who has been a mentor of mine, and I firewalk with Charles Horton, so I'm a firewalking instructor. And what I love about the timing now and the possibility of getting the show at this point is that my life has changed, and I've grown so much, and I'm really a better person for having gone through some of the hardships and the letdowns that I've been through. So I think if it would have come at the time that they were planning it 3 years ago, it might have been too quick for me, and I wouldn't have been prepared for really the servant leadership role that I think I'm going to be going into.
No, totally agree. I think that we have our initial plans and our initial thoughts as to what we can accomplish in a project. As Charles' book says, you got to take action, so you got to move forward, you got to
Right.
go towards it. But at the same time, I think there is a refining process that happens along the way. I know our conversations with D.I.V.A.S back a number of years ago versus where you are today. I know you've grown tremendously.
Absolutely.
I know my side with Talking with Giants and the things that I've been through over the last those 5, 6, 7 years has made me better along the way. I remember Joyce Meyer saying one time, you know, many times you're ready, but the people God needs to put with you aren't.
Right.
And so now it's a matter of timing matching up.
It's funny that you mentioned Joyce Myers, and I think that one thing that's very important, whether you're in business for yourself or you're going through a divorce, any type of transition in your life, it's really important to surround yourself with positive influences. And Joyce Myers is one of mine. I listen to her almost daily. I listen to Joel Osteen all the time. I read avidly, so that's their books. I've read most of them. In fact, I don't think you could mention one that I have not read. And then having mentors from day to day, like the Charles Horton. In fact, you will also be having another guest on your show, JP, who's founder and broker of JP and Associates. And, you know, I really surround myself with successful people who are not just successful, but also out there helping other people grow.
Well, that's part of the servant leadership that we that we wanted to talk about today. I know that I've found that all my mentors, one of the things that I said to them all is, give me everything you got. Don't hold anything back, because I won't keep it.
Right.
I'll share it. Have you found the same thing?
Well, mentors are not meant to tell you what you want to hear. And I think that a lot of people make the mistake of surrounding themselves with the yes people. And while you do want your cheerleaders, you want the people that are going to be honest with you and tell you, look, I see this as a problem and you need to fix that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, constructive criticism
Right.
is a must in doing anything. I talk consistently about the only way to gain feedback is to take an action. It's the only way you're going to be on or off course. It's the only way you're going to know.
Well, and I'll say this too, constructive criticism isn't necessarily the best coming from a spouse or, you know, being in a relationship with somebody. I think it's always good to have mentors outside of your primary relationship as far as business goes, because sometimes you take it more personal from a spouse.
Sometimes that
No
sounds
to
like
any boyfriend or anybody who ever tries to date me. I don't take criticism well from them.
well, that's just being upfront and knowing the rules. As long as you know the rules, you can play.
Right.
No, again, I think why did you choose to become a firewalk instructor? I think it's, again, I listen and I hear interesting things in these conversations.
Had I not had the relationship with Charles that I had and the respect I had for him, I probably would have ran away and thought they were crazy. But thank God I did it, because it taught me to overcome my limiting beliefs. And you've set an intention. This is what a lot of people don't understand about the fire walk, is that when you walk, you're not just walking to say, oh my goodness, I walked over fire. You're setting some type of intention. And sometimes that's leaving something in the past or something that you want to obtain. And my goal at that point, my intention was to actually have a show. And I had a great trainer. Joe was helping that day get us in state. And I will never forget him putting me in state. And he's like, you got to feel it. You got to touch it. You got to want this if you want it to happen. And I believe that's so true in life.
We have to take the actions. We have to go forward. But like a GPS can lead you anywhere, even to this studio.
I always say I have a natural gift to get lost with a GPS.
Right. But if you have the right address program, right? So you've got to have that intention in place. So you doing the show now, although it might be 3 years later, is not a fluke.
No, it's not. And what's very interesting is that I do a lot of different shows and a lot of different filming. And so we were actually filming for Firewalking, and I was going to tell my story, and I made a decision not to because my intention hadn't come to fruition yet. And so the instructor happened to be here. I probably haven't seen him in a year, and he was here the day we were filming. So he texted me at 7 in the morning, and he said, like, why didn't you tell your story? And I texted him back, and I said, my intention has not happened yet. By 1 o'clock that day, I had a Facebook message from the producers saying that they wanted to start the show up again, that there has been some interest in it. So, you know, people can say that things are ironic, but I really do believe a lot of it's about timing. And I'm very thankful for the fact that I was humbled before getting a certain amount of success.
I think that's an imperative too, especially if you're going to be in that servant leadership role. you've got to do it from the heart, and you've got to do it without chasing the gold, right?
My GPS comes from above, so
Yeah, no,
even though I get lost on the highway, I believe that my life and my plan for my life has been pre-written. And do I love it? Do I sometimes want to say, God, are you listening to me? Could you get off your cruise and stop vacationing and give me what I want now? But there's a reason sometimes we don't get what we want now.
It was, I think I've referenced it in a show. If I haven't, I will now. I was doing a devotional at Ziegler Corporation in their Monday morning devotionals when I had just turned 55. And I was talking about, I had read See You at the Top when I was 17.
Wow.
And the quote was, you can have anything in life you want when you simply help enough other people get what they want.
Love that quote.
And so I had made the statement that I had read it when I was 17, and all of a sudden I stopped down the entire presentation. I went, holy cow, I'm 4 years ahead. And everybody's looking at me with this really strange look. And I said, well, think about it. They took 42 years for an 11-day journey. This 55 minus 17 is only 38. I'm 4 years ahead. So again, the timing, I think it's the positive expectancy that we place upon, you knew you were going to have a show. And to a certain extent, I knew I was going to do this show at some time.
Right.
And a lot of the things that we're now doing together and going to do, and those were plans that were set out years ago.
Well, and I think there's an importance too in not burning bridges, because it does get frustrating when you're building a business and you're promised something and you think something's going to happen and things fall apart. And sometimes you get upset with the people who've worked with you on the project or whatever. And so we take things out on the people closest to us sometimes. But taking a step back, and this is something that Charles has taught me, not only never to give up, but taking a step back. He says 3 times forgiveness, 3 times patience, 3 times consider before you react to a situation. So I think that that's very important in life.
I love that because we do tend to get, life's a full contact sport.
It is a full contact sport.
Right. I mean,
and we don't get padding for
no,
it.
we don't. We're not normally suited up
right.
the right way each time, And again, I think one of the just coming from this funeral earlier today, and just the message was savor life. Spend time with friends, do the things that are important, leave a legacy.
Right.
And again, another thing you and I wanted to talk about here. What's legacy mean to you?
Legacy, the way I felt about starting D.I.V.A.S and all of that is that if I saved one person's life, I won. I made a difference. Sorry. So that, I tear up on that because I really believe that with my soul. And to know now, like I'm this little 98-pound girl, I literally have saved thousands of people's lives. And so making a difference, a positive influence in people's lives, and something that my kids can look at and say, wow, my mom did something different and she helped people. And let me tell you, it hasn't been easy. But I also think we all have a story to share. And I always tell people, you need to write your story with your own pen because you don't want somebody else writing your story.
That's great advice right there. I was talking with my sister yesterday, and she said, she goes, I've been watching the shows, and really good shows. And I said, well, thanks, you're my sister, you're paid to say that, And she said, no, she goes, I really love what you're coming across. And I kind of said, gosh, I just wish we'd get it in front of more people, and all the things that you tend to do, right?
Right.
And then I went, oh, but you know what? That one email I got Monday morning from last week's show that said we made a huge difference. Okay, we did good.
Right.
Right? And again, if we believe God's plan and timing is perfect, which we both do,
Definitely.
If we're supposed to have more viewers, we'll have more viewers, but we'll have exactly the right viewers.
I believe that 110%. So, for me, it isn't about touching the masses right away. It's about touching that one person and knowing that now they have a mom, they have a sister still because we made a difference, we made an impact. And, I have to say that I'm very fortunate and blessed to have people like you and others in my life that have that same mindset. They're not out here wanting a show so they can be a celebrity. They're out there wanting to get their message out, the right message, and really wanting to save and better lives.
It's interesting that you say that, because I had a lot of friends who said, so are the Giants celebrity based? Right?
Right.
Their definition of a giant was it must be a celebrity that's got this massive following. And for me, the definition of a giant is that person who's a servant leader, who's giving back, who's making a
Right.
difference, who does it whether they get credit or not.
Absolutely. And I've never been called a giant before, Scott. I'm 5'1", 98 pounds, but I feel blessed today to be called a giant. And I'm surrounded by giants. And these people, not only are they successful in their business, they're giving back, they're giving a hand to people to help them take those next steps. And again, that's part of the significance with the Firewalk. You always take that next step. And, I think it's funny because I recently hired a coach. And so people are like, a coach helping a coach. But I don't think people value that significance as much as they should sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes we have to step outside of ourselves to see where our barriers really are.
Well, and I think firewalking does that, breaking limiting beliefs.
Oh my
It's certainly not the only technique.
So I'm an instructor, so I went 108 times in one night. But I will tell you, the first firewalk that I did, aside from having my children, was the proudest moment of my life. Truly.
108 times in one night.
108 times. You know me, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go full in. So
That's more than one per pound.
But it's so much fun, and Charles says this a lot. I know we're talking a lot about the firewalking, and I think that this is significant in life too. Sometimes we learn just as much about watching other people than we do about doing something ourselves. So it's not always just about walking on the fire, it's about watching the other people take that next step. And that's what's really significant in what I do and what a lot of the people around me do, is they help people take that next step.
Peggy laughs at me all the time because we might be watching The Biggest Loser or watching something, right? And somebody will lose 18 pounds and she'll go, "Are you welling up? Are you getting
I
misty?"
do?
And it's like I'm so
You're on
happy
their
for
side.
their
You want-
success. It's so cool.
Everybody wants a happy story, right? We want to see that happy ending.
Well, what if we could get everybody to want to see everyone else succeed? What would our world be like?
I think it'd be a much better place. And we have family of choice. So I've made a decision in my life to only work with people who are in that realm. And I'll tell you what, I have a much better life living that way. And I think especially with women, and I hate to throw women under the bus here, but I think women are often very competitive and not collaborative. And I believe 110% in collaboration.
I totally agree with you. One of the groups that I belong to, the Evolutionary Business Council, is a group of about 150 speakers. And we started by Teresa de Gravois up in Calgary, great friend. But what we do is we collaborate with each other. We work to lift each other up. It's just a wonderful situation. Again, I thank you for the introductions to JP and to Charles, and we're going to be doing a variety of projects together. Isn't it amazing when you get like-minded people together what can happen?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It only takes one person to change the world. But imagine how much a group of people who are truly out there wanting to make a difference, wanting to better people's lives, when we all come together and collaborate, the miracles that happen, I wish that everybody could see it. I always say this: hate divides, love multiplies. And I'm very fortunate to be in an environment where we are out there trying to help people we love through their situations, whatever that is, whether it's a divorce, loss of a business, starting a business, whatever it is. Let's love them through it.
Many of those things, although they seem significantly different, are really much the same.
Right.
Right? Starting a relationship in business, starting a relationship in with a marriage or a spouse or any of those kinds of things, right?
Right. You're creating, when you start a business, you're creating a culture, you're creating a family, you're creating an environment. So yes, it's absolutely got a lot of the same significance.
So how is our audience get to you? How do they get to connect with you?
Well, they can find me at divastogether.com, and our number is 1-800-294-DIVA.
I love that.
Yes.
One of the other things that I want to make sure that everybody knows is a little bit of foundation of where Talking with Giants started from. And in order to do that, it really started with the book Talking with Giants that I wrote back in 2006 and 7. But I'd like to make sure that you all have a free digital copy of that if you want it. All you have to do is text Free Giants Book to 972-419-4386, and we'll get you a book free. I want you to understand there's 21 charities tied to that book, and at the very least you can do some good with it. How about one last, we're kind of running out of time, how about one last bit of wisdom for everybody?
Well, I want to thank you, first and foremost. You are amazing, and you do connect a lot of people. But I will say this, I believe firmly that if you can give enough people what they want, you can get what you want. And so when I meet people, I'm always looking to see what they need and who I can connect them to. And you're of the same mindset, so I appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you. It's been fun,
It
as
has.
we get to know each other. You know, here at Talking with Giants, I tell you every week, we're bringing you the best of the best. Please share this message, uanetwork.tv, 9 a.m. Central Time Saturdays. After the fact, you can catch it streaming. There's so many different ways to catch Talking with Giants. But the way that we can help more people is if you help us help you. In other words, if you share this message, talkingwithgiants.com, there's a lot of other information there. Blogs will feature divas and put some information about divas there and about Amber, also about Charles and firewalking and JP when he comes up next week, and of course the Tom Zigglers of the world and all that as well. Want to thank you very much for being here at Talking with Giants. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. God bless.
Hi, Scott Schilling here. A number of years ago, I met Guinness Book of World Records holder, world's fastest reader, Howard Berg. His ability to manage knowledge impressed me. With the amount of information available today and the pace with which it's coming at us, having the ability to read and remember that information is more critical every day. Howard told me that using his techniques, I could double my reading speed in just a few short hours. Initially, I wasn't sure, but if in fact Howard was right, it'd be the best $100 in couple hours I ever spent. Then Howard made an irresistible offer. Learn it first. Double your reading speed in just a few hours, or you owe me nothing. Now, how can you go wrong? The results have been amazing. I asked Howard if he would pass along that same opportunity to our TWG audience. Emphatically, Howard said yes. To learn more, simply go to twgspeedreading.com. Watch a short introductory video, sign up for the webinar that best fits your schedule, and double your reading speed in just a few hours, or you pay nothing. Now that's a deal worth looking into. twgspeedreading.com.